to Section 8 rental vouchers, the kind of voucher that people get assigned to themselves and they can take to landlords, is very scarce. It's really rare, and the federal funding for those kinds of programs is being cut every year. So the future hope for that as a resource to be available is unlikely to happen. One of the things that Moving Out has been able to do is to work with some specific housing authorities in communities where we have a project going, and if we're successful, we'll be able to have that housing authority assign a subsidy to the unit so that we can offer a unit that then would be covered by that Section 8 subsidy. It only would serve, if your daughter or son moved into that place, it would only work for your son or daughter's benefit while they live there. When they move out, then it'd be the next person who benefits, because the voucher is attached to the building rather than to the person. But so there are some ways around. The other way, the other way to secure affordable housing is a method that we used in the New Berlin project, but also here in Dane County and elsewhere in projects, where we, with another developer, will apply to WIDA for low-income housing tax credits. This is a program that's actually run by IRS. It's a tax credit program designed to assist big corporations with huge profits in order for them to offset some of their tax liability. And secondarily, people with affordable housing needs benefit. So these tax credits are sold to businesses, they buy them at a discount, and then that replaces their tax liability. The benefit on our side is that this produces quite a significant amount of financing or funding for the development, for constructing and operating apartments. And so because this tax credit money gets put on the table as a replacement for money that otherwise we would borrow from a bank, we don't have to pay interest on that. So our debt service and our operational budget, if this is getting wonky, I'm sorry, but just so you understand how this works, is so that any business that has that it's in operation has to pay its operating costs. The big operating costs for many businesses is the debt that they have, the interest that they pay. If we're able to build an apartment building and 3/4 of the cost of that came from these tax credits, and we're not paying the interest rate to the bank for that on our mortgage, then our operating budget is that much less. And if we have a lower operating budget, that translates into lower rents. So rents can be affordable to a range of different household incomes, including the most affordable units, affordable to people who rely on benefit income like SSI or Social Security disability income. And what we aim to do when we're involved in building a development is to make sure that the moving out tenants have the most accessible units and have the most affordable units. So we will wrap that'll be the terms of our engagements. We get those units that are sort of the best bargains. We currently are working on actually a couple of projects in Jefferson County. If you think of downtown Watertown, there's a big, across the street from the library, there's a big structure going up. That's going to be a 5-story apartment building that Horizon Development and Moving Out are going to joint partners on. 11 of the 50 units in that building are now being marketed to people who rely on the supportive services that they get from a family care agency, and I think most of them are also then affiliated with a residential provider that not only is responsible for the Bethesda, the big facility, but they also provide community services to people in their own homes. So I believe it's Care Wisconsin is the family care agency, and Bethesda is the residential provider. for a number of people that have been referred to them. But some of them, they didn't have, Care Wisconsin didn't have, they had sort of the head start because of an agreement they had with us. Didn't fill them all, so then people who were affiliated with IRIS or with the other family care organization that operates their community care has a shot at the remaining units that are there. That project will be finished this fall. I think move-in is September. And then in about a year from now, there's a project similar to that, except a little bit smaller, that we're just beginning to develop, or we're just approaching the construction phase in Waterloo. So the end of 2015, 24 units of housing will be available there. 6 of the 24 units will be marketed to households that include people with disabilities. Any questions about housing or home or moving out?
Are there new things coming up in Madison?
I'm glad you asked that. Yes, there is. We have construction going on right now, a project in Wanakee, almost sort of, Madison's sort of a suburb of Wanakee. This is right downtown in Wanakee on the corner of Madison and Main Street. That's why we call it Madison and Main. And that has 74 units, and 10 of them have been made affordable by the subsidies that we have available, and those 10 will be marketed to people who, with disabilities, people who rely on supportive services. The whole scheme behind the Wanakee project actually was generated by families, families that noticed that when their sons and daughters graduate from high school in Wanakee, families are faced with a stark choice. To get services, they had to ship their sons and daughters to Madison, kind of say goodbye to them because they didn't have as much chance to have day-to-day contact with them, or keep them at home in the family home without those services, and the skills that they saw develop in their sons and daughters while they're in school begin to erode a little bit because they're just kind of playing video games in the basement or something. So the idea was to create a possibility for sons and daughters to live in their own place in the hometown with family members willing to provide informal support available to them, and with that sort of subsidy of services provided by the family, encourage the other services that need to be sponsored by Dane County to come out to Wanakee to support them. So it's an experiment. We'll see that if that works. That project is the construction is going on right now. We expect it to be finished November or December. The marketing of those units, you should start looking for that now if you're interested. Will be probably in August or September that we start encouraging people to lease that up. And then we just got these tax credits that I mentioned assigned to a project that we're going to build on Cottage Grove Road, where the Royster factory. There's a big factory there that built fertilizer, I think. Yeah. And they cleared all that stuff away.
Is that by the Y there?
Yeah, it is, right by the Y. Yeah. And the Penny branch of the library. This is part of a bigger redevelopment of a whole big area there. As a matter of fact, the Penny Library is going to be moving into the same redevelopment area that we are. So we'll have 70 units of housing there, about 16 to 18 of them marketed to people with disabilities. Our offices are there too, so we're kind of excited about that. But there are going to be other businesses. There's going to be a dental office. There's going to be, it's almost a done deal. I think maybe all but signing the papers that the Willie Street Co-op is going to open a third store, a grocery store.
Is that when they're opening it?
And they're going to also have a facility for preparing the food for catering. And they're going to have a third place there where there'll be kind of a production facility for locally grown food. So there'll be, what we've already talked to the grocery store or the co-op. What are the possibilities that people who are tenants at the moving out place to have work adjacent, right next door to them? And if you have stability where you live and stability where you work, man, you are really far along in terms of actually probably reducing a little bit your reliance on a real complex support system. So there's some real promising things coming along.
That's
Can I-
one thing they mentioned about that mission, is there was a community center right across the street, and as part of being in this group of apartment complexes, they got access to the community center and the fitness programs there and
Yeah,
things like that.
right, yeah.
Finding places to live where there are lots of amenities is,
Yeah.
can be a big part of, like you said, make all the rest of it easier, because transportation will always be the
Transportation's
the
always an
struggle that it
issue.
is, yeah. There was a in the
Yeah.
back, I think, it's, yeah.
The city has been moving forward with a 60-unit apartment
Oh,
complex near the Aloha Inn off East Washington Avenue.
yeah, mhm.
Is moving on to.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
part of that, we're not part of that project. That's more transitional housing, and one of the things that we focus on is permanent housing that the housing itself is open and available to a wide variety of people. And the housing that you're talking about is much needed transitional housing for homeless people and to be available for that housing in that 60 units requires, I think, a person to demonstrate their homelessness.
Can I pipe in for 1 second? One of the things that Heidi and I also do is try and help people think creatively. We talk about all these services of these folks here, but for housing, because that independence for your son or daughter to move out is always huge. And depending on how much support your child needs, if they need a lot of support, then it probably wouldn't be applicable. But if they need less support, like I'll say, for instance, they go to Love Dane events and they meet some other people their age, their same interests, their same kind of level of support need, and perhaps rent an apartment together, or some parents get a duplex and have their son or daughter live on the other side so they can still have some support, but they also have their independence. Get together with those parents and say, okay, I'm gonna cook meals once a week, and I'll do X number of meals, or I'll stop in once a week and make sure their meds are set up, or whatever it is needed. But if you do it with another set of parents or two, then sometimes it's more doable as opposed to waiting for us.
Carrie?
But I have a question about that though, but if you sort of try and set something up with parents, but then you still have to enter the waiting list and you may not get any other help, or, I don't quite understand this help thing.
For what people refer to as the waiting list, would be for the county to come in and help pay. Which,
Oh, okay.
right, which could be a long time.
Yeah,
A long
okay.
time. So this is a way to make things happen quicker.
Okay.
And still, if there were a crisis down the road, if your son or daughter is living in an apartment with a couple of other people, and, heaven forbid, you pass away or something, and then someone says, this person's in crisis, they can't live there anymore for whatever reason, parents are no longer here to take care of them, then that's why we say we're crisis driven, then
Okay.
somebody has to step in and do something.
Okay.
But you can do a lot with
Mhm.
private reason. My brother,
Right.
he lives in Section 8 housing. It's a building-based housing, and he's paid for a lot of his own supports out of his SSI,
Okay.
which is not ideal, but it's workable.
I'll just mention that our Wanakee housing that is getting ready to be moved into later in the year it has some of those units of the 10, like 8 of the 10 have a project-based Section 8 voucher attached to it, so they would be affordable to really any household, because also they would be paying just 30% of their household income on rent. And so long as they maintain their eligibility for the Section 8 program, which is having a real low income, then that could go on.
Gary?
Go ahead.
Gary Messenger, I'm with the Dane County Time Bank. I'm also doing a little bit in my spare time with the Time Bank down in Rock County, which is where I live. And I'm going to start with handouts with a bonus for the non-Dane residents here. Jefferson? Okay.
There you go. There you go.
Well, it's okay. You're welcome to have one too. I gave you that because of the watch.
Okay. Mr. Tillman?
You in Madison? Madison also? Your name? Madison or?
And Jefferson. You have two, we should get them for our friends.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did you want this?
Yeah. Can't give you that.
No, I'll take it. I'll take it.
So, before I get into nuts and bolts on Time Bank, just a little brief history. It's good to realize that some of you are outside of Dane County. Time Banks have been around in this form for about 30 years, and it's pretty widespread. It's in over 40 countries. And I gave a list of time banks in Wisconsin, which I will say is not exactly up to date. It's probably about a year old. You'll see in Jefferson, there's one with a contact there. Last I knew about a year ago, they were pretty much in a startup phase, so I really don't know where they're at, but just so you know that there could be something in your area. And also for Dane County Time Bank, you don't have to be a resident of Dane County. If you are spending some time here, whether it's work or occasionally visiting, traveling, that's fine. We're not concerned on the geographics of it. So nuts and bolts in time banking briefly. What we have is a system where we've got a community of members who are trading their time with each other. Instead of trading money for services, they're just trading their time and skills and resources that they have to share. Bottom line, the way it works is for every hour that you help another member in the time bank, you earn 1 hour in your account. And then what's nice is, you're helping me with a couple hours of yard work around the home. I don't have the skill you're looking for in return, but in exchange for the 2 hours you earned helping me, you can spend those 2 hours on any other member of the time bank, which obviously opens up a lot more possibilities than depending we have the skills that we can trade back and forth. A couple of huge values is that everybody's time is valued the same. So whether you're raking the leaves or designing a website, an hour's an hour for all. In Dane County, we are looked at as a leader in the time bank movement. We've got over 2,300 members and 180, 190 organizations. So it's really certainly thriving here, more than you're going to find in Jefferson, even if they are going. So there's an incredible wealth of resources. We're also not concerned if you've earned more hours or spent more. So if you sign up today and there's some resource you want to access, we want to hook you up with that. The expectation is that you try your best to help somebody else in return. But it's not about, this system does keep track of the hours earned and spent, but it's about building community and sharing resources that are at hand. It's pretty much the bottom line of it. It's not about me, but sometimes I feel like personal stories of things that people have done makes it more real. We moved from Madison. We lived for 20 years to Barnett and Rock County about 5 years ago now, and got a nice barn, and I needed to build horse stalls, which was, I can't tell you the level of anxiety that gave me, because I was the ultimate non-handyman, never owned a power tool in my life. I had Jim come down. He didn't build the horse stalls for me, but he showed me how to do them, and I built 2 horse stalls. I don't consider myself super boastful, but I'm very proud of my horse stalls. I've had horse people come down and say, wow, who built those? But bigger than that, I felt that he gave me basic construction skills. I've got my half dozen or so power tools now. And just yesterday, actually, I built a day yard for my chickens to be in. And, now I don't panic when something goes wrong, too. So it's a great way for me and for others to learn a variety of skills. And it's not all rocket science. I have a pickup truck, so I've hauled mulch for people, or I've moved some furniture, I've given music lessons. It just values that, one, that we all are assets in our community and all have things to contribute, no matter who we are or where we're at. And like I say, that it's all equal. It's about building community and what are people doing every day to help their neighbors out. It gives value in some things that aren't economically always rewarded by us. So it's my really brief in a nutshell there. Comments, thoughts, questions there?
I'll pipe in one more second.
Please.
I love the time bank. I'm a member of the time bank as well, and this is where transportation comes in.
Yeah.
Transportation is easy for me. That is something I can do. So Stephanie works with some folks that are